The laughter echoed through the glass-walled penthouse, mingling with the soft hum of violins and the gentle clink of champagne flutes. Manhattan glittered beneath the sky like a sea of diamonds, but all eyes were on the center of the ballroom, the grand piano, black and untouched, gleaming under a spotlight like a silent challenge. Clarissa Halvorsen, tall and blonde with eyes the color of frost, stood beside it in a crimson evening gown. She held a flute of Dom Perignon carelessly between two fingers, her laughter floating in the air like perfume. Around her, the elite of New York society swirled, laughing too, eager to impress. "I mean it," she said loudly, her voice just slightly slurred with drink and arrogance. "If any man in this room can play this piano, actually play, I'll marry him right now. No prenup. No tricks." Her crowd of admirers roared. One of them, Chase Denham, some hedge fund heir with slicked back hair and too many teeth, stepped forward. "Play? I barely know how to spell piano," he said, tapping a few keys to mock applause. It made a harsh, broken sound. Everyone laughed harder. Clarissa spun dramatically and bowed like a stage actress. "See? Not a single soul here with real talent. Just yachts and trust funds." From the edge of the room, near the marble columns, someone moved. Not many noticed. He had a mop in one hand and a quiet way about him that made him easy to ignore. Donnie stood still for a moment, watching the spectacle with no change in his face. He wasn't young, mid-30s maybe, but there was something calm in his bearing. His uniform was pressed, though faded. Name tag on the chest. Dark skin. Close-cut hair. He had been there since the early evening, cleaning up wine drops, folding napkins that had fallen, collecting the shattered remains of an overambitious waiter's tray. The staff were ghosts at events like these. But now, someone noticed him. An older man in a gray tux squinted. "Hey, janitor. You dropped something?" Donnie shook his head. "No, sir." Clarissa turned her head lazily. "Do you need to come through?" "No, ma'am. Just..." He hesitated, eyes flicking to the piano. "Heard you say anyone could try." She blinked, confused. "What?" "I can play," he said. Calm. Clear. Not seeking approval. Just stating a fact. At first, there was silence. Then a wave of laughter even louder than before. It spread like wildfire. Chase nearly choked on his drink. "You?" Clarissa asked. "You're serious?" Donnie nodded once. The laughter died down, but the mockery remained, lingering in the corners of every mouth. Charles Halvorsen, Clarissa's father, looked up from his conversation and finally noticed the interruption. His voice was gruff, seasoned by years of dismissing people. "You work for the cleaning service, right?" "Yes, sir." Charles waved a hand. "Let him. Could be amusing." Clarissa's smile curled, half curious, half cruel. She stepped aside. "All right, Beethoven. Floor's yours." Donnie walked slowly across the marble floor, each step echoing strangely loud. He stopped beside the piano. His hands hovered over the keys but didn't touch them. People whispered now, leaning to one another. Some already had their phones out. A few waiters peeked from the hallway. Donnie sat. His back straight. No theatrics. He rolled his shoulders once. Stretched his fingers. Clarissa folded her arms, expecting a cringe-worthy disaster. Donnie placed his fingers on the keys. Then he paused. The room, even with all its chandeliers and laughter, held its breath. He closed his eyes. And then, he began. The first note was soft. Gentle. Like the opening line of a story only he knew. Then came another. And another. A ripple. A rhythm. A memory. Clarissa's face changed almost instantly. The playful smirk slipped. Her eyes narrowed, trying to understand what she was hearing. It wasn't a pop song. It wasn't showy. It was haunting. The notes were velvet and thunder, rain and fire. They rose, danced, dipped, soared. Guests froze. Someone dropped their champagne. A woman covered her mouth. Donnie's fingers moved like liquid, like wind, No sheet music, no hesitation. It was not the playing of a man who had stumbled into talent. It was the playing of someone who had suffered through it. Lived with it. Fought for it. Clarissa took a step back unconsciously. Charles Halvorson stood up, his face unreadable. Still, Downey didn't open his eyes. He played like the keys were part of his body, like every note had been stored inside him for decades, waiting for this moment. People gathered closer. No one laughed now. When the piece slowed, the room seemed to lean forward. The final notes trembled like the last breaths of something beautiful. And then silence. Thick. Reverent. Downey exhaled, fingers lifting. He opened his eyes. Clarissa didn't speak. She couldn't. Charles stepped forward. Where did you learn to do that? Downey stood. At home. On a broken keyboard. Practiced every night after shifts. My mother taught me the basics. You've been working here for years, Clarissa whispered. He looked at her. Yes, ma'am. Her voice was small. Why didn't you ever say anything? No one ever asked? And with that, he turned and walked away from the piano. Past the stunned billionaires. Past the glittering gowns. Past Clarissa. And for the first time all evening, no one had a thing to say. The silence clung to the ballroom like fog after a storm. No one moved. The echo of the final note still hung in the air, haunting and golden, refusing to be forgotten. Downey had returned to the edge of the room, back where the mop bucket waited. He didn't touch it. He didn't need to. His hands had already spoken louder than any speech ever could. Clarissa stared at the piano, her expression locked somewhere between awe and disbelief. Her friends, usually so quick with mockery or jokes, said nothing. Chase swallowed hard and looked away, embarrassed to have laughed at the man now proven to be something none of them would ever be, extraordinary star. Charles Halvorson rubbed his chin. That was unexpected. One of the guests whispered to another. He played better than my son's Juilliard professor. He played like a ghost, said a woman near the bar. Like someone who's been waiting his whole life for this moment. Another chimed in. No cameras caught it. My God! It was real! And it's already gone. Clarissa turned sharply and walked toward Downey. He stood still, his eyes calm but unreadable. Why didn't you tell anyone? She asked. He looked at her, not coldly, but without apology. Tell them what? That you could do that, she said, voice brittle. That you could play like that. Like a concert pianist. No. Better. Like someone who could headline in Vienna or Paris. I mop floors, ma'am. That's all anyone's cared to know. That's not what I mean. He didn't flinch. Isn't it? She blinked, caught off guard by the bluntness. You made a game out of it. He continued, quiet but steady. You thought it'd be funny. Like no one in the room could possibly have anything to offer that wasn't dressed in silk and arrogance. The words stung more because they were true. Clarissa turned away, trying to save face, but the damage had already begun. The murmurs weren't laughing now. They were leaning in, watching her unravel. Charles approached them both. His face was stoic, almost calculating. Downey, is it? Yes, sir. You've worked in this building for how long? 4 years off and on. Mostly evenings. Nobody notices much. Charles nodded slowly. Do you know what that piano cost me? Yes, sir. I cleaned under it more than once. It's a Steinway Model D, ebony finish. Custom legs. Rare wood for the keys. Maybe 300,000? Charles raised an eyebrow. Correct. I know instruments, sir, Downey said simply. And you never asked to play it? I wasn't invited. Clarissa looked between them. Daddy, you should have seen. I did see, Charles interrupted. And here. He turned his eyes back to Downey. You have skill. Beyond skill. Natural genius. But raw. Downey didn't smile or fidget. He simply said, Yes, sir. I could get you into conservatories. You ever hear of the Rothschild Scholarship? I've read about it. I help fund it. I know people. We could polish you. Donnie paused. Are you offering because you mean it? Or because I made your daughter look foolish? The question landed like a slap. Several people nearby turned sharply. Charles's face stiffened. Don't mistake an offer for pity, son. I'm not. I'm just asking if it's real. Clarissa stepped in, her voice quiet but sincere. I didn't mean to humiliate myself. I mean, I did. But not like that. You were breathtaking. He finally looked at her, not with contempt, but something softer. I believe you meant it in the moment. The challenge. She nodded. I did. But I didn't think anyone would take it seriously. He tilted his head. That's what people with safety nets always assume. That the rest of us wouldn't dare dream too high. Someone from the far end of the room spoke, cutting through the tension like silk. I've never seen a man play with such pain and grace at once, said an older woman with silver hair and a green dress that whispered royalty. She stepped forward slowly, her cane tapping gently against the floor. What's your name? Downey James, ma'am. I'm Eleanor Halvorson, she said. Charles's mother. Retired soprano. Used to teach at Juilliard before most of you were born. The room stilled further. Everyone knew her. The woman had trained legends. I've heard thousands of pianists in my lifetime. But I've never seen one pour himself into a piano like you just did. You made that instrument weep. Thank you, ma'am, Downey said, eyes softening just a bit. I want to sponsor your debut, she said. A proper one. I'll pay for the venue. The rehearsal time. We'll get you an agent. Charles opened his mouth to object, but she raised a finger. I said I'll do it. Donnie looked stunned for the first time. Clarissa blinked. You're serious? Completely, Eleanor replied. Talent like his doesn't come from wealth. It comes from surviving long enough to be heard. Donnie swallowed hard. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Eleanor said. Donnie looked down at his hands, calloused, tired, and suddenly very real. He nodded once. Yes. Clarissa stepped closer, her voice soft. Donnie, would you stay a little longer? Maybe have a drink? He looked at her, thoughtful, but distant. I'm not angry, she added quickly. I'm embarrassed. But I want to understand. I want to hear more. If you'd let me. He studied her for a long moment. I'm not a game, he said. I know that now. Another pause. Then he smiled, just a little. One drink. No promises. And together they walked back into the room. Not as Billionaire's daughter and janitor, but as two people who, for the first time that night, were truly seen. 3 weeks later, the lobby of Carnegie Hall smelled like polished wood and freshly printed programs. The lights were dimming. The chatter among the suited audience was low but electric. Donnie stood backstage in a crisp black tuxedo, fingers twitching slightly at his sides. His heart thudded, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of how far he'd come. He was no longer wearing a name tag. No longer pushing a mop across marble. He was here now. And people had come for him. Clarissa was in the third row, seated beside Eleanor Halvorson. Her father sat on the other side, unusually quiet, his usual smug detachment replaced with something more grounded. The old woman leaned forward, eyes gleaming, whispering something about timing and tempo. Clarissa smiled politely, but her gaze remained fixed on the curtain that concealed the stage. Backstage, a stagehand gave Donnie a small nod. It's time. He walked out. No fanfare. No speech. Just a man and a piano. The crowd applauded softly, curious. Then settled into silence. Donnie sat. Breathed once. And began. He didn't open with a famous piece. Not Mozart. Not Bach. He opened with his own composition, untitled, raw, filled with the melodies that used to echo in his mother's small apartment in Harlem. The kind of music that isn't born in textbooks, but in pain. In hunger. In the silence of working nights while the rest of the city sleeps. The keys sang. Not loud, not showy, honest star. Each chord carried memories. The first time he'd heard music on a cassette player that barely worked. The cracked keyboard he practiced on after school. The nights he cried, hands shaking, not from grief but from being invisible in a world that only saw the color of his skin and the uniform he wore. Now that world watched him. Listened. Held its breath. By the third movement, people were weeping. A journalist from the Times scribbled furiously, mouthing words like prodigy and revelation. A young music student in the balcony clutched his chest, overwhelmed. When the final note faded, Donnie left his hands resting on the keys. He didn't bow. He didn't move. The hall remained silent for a heartbeat. Then the thunder came. A standing ovation that shook the floor. Applause like hail on rooftops. Some shouted. Some just cried. Backstage, Eleanor wiped a tear and clutched her cane like a trophy. Charles stood and clapped slowly, pride restrained but undeniably present. Clarissa didn't clap at first. She just stared. Her eyes wide, mouth slightly open. When Donnie finally rose, he gave a single nod. Then walked off stage. Back in the green room, he sat quietly, towel in hand, sweat on his brow. His heart was calmer now. No anxiety. Just peace. The door creaked open. Clarissa stepped in, heels clicking softly. She was wearing a simple black dress, elegant but understated. Her hair tied back. No diamonds. No games. "I've never heard anything like that in my life," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you," Donnie replied. He sipped water. Looked up at her. "You didn't have to come. I wanted to. I've been to 100 concerts. I've been bored at 99 of them. But tonight, I forgot who I was. Where I was." He raised an eyebrow. "Even forgot your designer shoes?" She smiled. "Even that." There was a pause between them. Comfortable, but charged. She stepped closer. "I've been thinking about what I said that night. The bet. The mockery." He stayed silent. "I was raised in a world where everything's a joke or a transaction. Where nobody looks beyond the surface. I don't want to be that person anymore. I don't expect you to change because of me," Donnie said. She looked him dead in the eye. "But I have changed because of you. You cracked something open in me. And I don't know what to do with that yet." He stood now, facing her. He was taller than she remembered. Stronger, too. Not physically, but in presence. "I'm not here to be a lesson," he said. "Or a redemption arc. I'm just a man who plays. And I want the world to hear it." "I know." She hesitated. Then reached into her purse and pulled out a small gold ring. Not an engagement ring. Something older. "My mother gave me this before she passed. Told me not to waste it on someone flashy. Told me to give it to someone real. I'm not giving it to you. I wanted to show it to you." Donnie stared at the ring for a moment. Then nodded. "Maybe we'll talk again," she said. "Maybe," he replied. She turned to leave but paused at the door. "You know I meant it. That night. In a twisted way, I did mean it. If someone could play that piano, I'd marry him. I just didn't know what it meant until now." He smiled, just barely. "I think now you do." She left without another word. He stood alone, the roar of the audience still echoing in his ears. He didn't need applause anymore. He didn't need permission. He had played. And they had listened. For the first time in his life, Donnie James had been seen. The studio lights were low, casting soft shadows on the wooden floor as Donnie stood beside the window, staring down at the New York skyline glowing under the night sky. It had been 6 months since Carnegie Hall. 6 months since the world discovered him. He no longer mopped floors. He no longer waited for people to notice. They noticed now. He had just finished his third sold-out concert, this one in Berlin. The reviews were pouring in from around the world. Every headline spoke of the same thing. The janitor who tamed the piano, Donnie James, from silence to symphony, a genius born in the shadows. His face was everywhere now, magazines, interviews, international broadcasts. But the fame didn't intoxicate him. Not like it might have once. He was grounded by something deeper, something that fame couldn't shake loose, asterisk the past star. His fingers still bore the tiny scars from years of work. And every time he sat before the piano, he remembered how it felt to be invisible. He never forgot that. He never wanted to. A soft knock pulled him out of thought. Eleanor stepped in, her cane tapping gently as always. She didn't speak right away. Just looked at him, eyes proud. "You were brilliant tonight," she said finally. "Even better than Carnegie." "I felt it," Downey said. "Like I wasn't performing anymore. I was just telling a story. That's all music is. Truth disguised in sound." He nodded. "They asked me to tour Asia next. You should go." "I think I will." There was a silence between them. Comfortable. Full. Then Eleanor tilted her head. "She called me." Donnie turned his eyes to her slowly. "Clarissa?" "Yes." "She still lives in New York?" "She does. Works with a nonprofit now. Teaching arts to underprivileged kids. Can you imagine?" He let out a small breath. "Actually, yeah. I can. She told me to tell you she was sorry for not coming to your last show. Said she thought you needed space. Said she wasn't sure if she was still part of your story." Donnie looked away. "Maybe she isn't. Maybe she is," Eleanor said gently. "Only you can know that." Later that night, after everyone left, Donnie walked through the empty venue. The stage was quiet. The piano covered. The seats vacant. He sat at the edge of the platform, hands resting on his knees. A memory flickered, Clarissa's face that night stunned. Then softened. Then silent. He had never hated her. He had been angry, yes. But mostly disappointed. Disappointed that the world was built with walls so high, even music sometimes couldn't scale them. But she had changed. He saw it in the photos. Read it in the articles. A billionaire's daughter turning her back on fashion campaigns and luxury brands to teach in community centers and rec rooms in the Bronx. No cameras. No press. Just work. She had been listening. The next morning, he flew back to New York. Not for a show. Not for press. Just to breathe the air of home. He didn't call anyone. Didn't announce his arrival. He went straight to the place he hadn't visited in months. The building where he used to mop floors. The marble lobby looked exactly the same. The elevator still creaked. The security guard on night duty blinked twice when he saw Donnie, unsure if he was dreaming. Donnie just smiled and said, "Just visiting an old ghost." He took the stairs to the rooftop. He remembered that night clearly now. The laughter. The piano. The offer Clarissa made. "If any man can play that piano, I'll marry him." At the time, it was a joke. A dare born of privilege. But something in it had lit a fuse. Not because he wanted to marry her, but because for once, someone had offered a challenge that didn't care about background, bank accounts, or bloodlines. Just skill. He had accepted. And won. But he didn't claim her. Didn't hold her to her words. Because love, he knew, couldn't be forged from performance. It had to be built. The rooftop was quiet. Morning light painting the skyline. He pulled out his phone. Found her number. Paused. Then sent a single message. "Still want to hear more?" It took 30 seconds. "Always." 2 weeks later, a private recital was held in a small community center in Brooklyn. Not a single reporter was invited. The audience was made up of local kids, their families, teachers. Folding chairs and hand-drawn posters. Donnie sat at a scuffed-up upright piano. No spotlight. No tuxedo. Just him. Clarissa sat cross-legged with the children on the floor. Wearing jeans and a sweater. Her hair in a bun. No makeup. He played. And she listened, not with the ears of a girl looking to be impressed, but with the heart of a woman who had changed. Who had grown. Who now understood that greatness didn't shout. It whispered. After the recital, a boy walked up to Donnie and said, "I want to play like you." "You can't," Donnie said. "It just takes time." The boy smiled. "My mom says we can't afford lessons." Donnie reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded flyer. "Come back here next week. I'll be teaching. For free." The boy's eyes lit up. From across the room, Clarissa watched. Later that evening, they walked outside together. She looked up at him, voice soft. "You know, I still have that ring. I remember. I wasn't ready before. But I think I might be now." He looked at her, then at the kids peeking out the window behind them, giggling. "You sure you want a life like this?" he asked. "Not stages and gowns. But messy, real things?" She reached for his hand. "I don't want perfect. I want true." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. His fingers closed around hers. And for the first time, without music or fanfare, without applause or lights, he played the sweetest note of all. He let her stay.